Chosen one, God saw what you did when no one was watching, and heaven wrote it down before the sun ever rose. The quiet sacrifice you made, the boundary you kept, the temptation you resisted, the kindness you offered even while your own heart felt worn thin. You thought it went unnoticed, you thought no one cared. But heaven paused this morning because of you. Look closely. That tug in your spirit isn't random. That warmth rising in your chest isn't imagination. It's confirmation. God is shockingly proud of you. Not for being perfect, not for pretending to be strong, but for choosing integrity in a moment where compromise would have been easier, for holding on to your faith while standing in rooms where doubt tried to swallow your voice, for walking away from what wounded you without letting bitterness own your future. You didn't know it, but angels leaned in last night. They watched you make the small choice that shifted the atmosphere. A choice that protected your destiny alignment. A choice that opened the door for emotional healing. A choice that marked the beginning of your breakthrough season. Listen, God recorded it, not to judge you, to honor you, to reward you. Your obedience in the dark has pulled a river of abundance toward your name. This morning, heaven's book carried a note beside your spirit. Well done. Release favor. And you've been wondering why today feels different, why your chest feels a little lighter, why your mind feels clearer than usual. It's because the spiritual realm already moved. The blessing is already on its way. The shift has already begun. But before heaven reveals what comes next, hear me, because the spiritual realm already moved. The blessing is already on its way. The shift has already begun. But listen closely now, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you lifts the curtain on the part of the story you never saw. You think God is proud of you because you did something loud or impressive. No. Heaven stood still because you did something quiet, something costly, something no one applauded, something you almost talked yourself out of because it felt too small to matter. Yet that small act rippled through eternity like a bell tolling in a sacred chamber. You held your tongue when anger begged to be released. You forgave someone who never asked. You walked away from a voice that tried to shrink you. You chose honesty even when lying would have protected your reputation. And here's the part you never realized. That single choice shifted your destiny alignment. It redirected an entire chain of consequences that would have delayed your elevation. God watched you step out of an old version of yourself and into the person you were always meant to become. That's why heaven recorded it. Look at your life for a moment. You've endured seasons where you felt unappreciated. You poured out love into empty rooms. You stayed loyal to people who couldn't hold your heart with the same care. You carried financial weight that broke others, yet you refused to let it corrupt your spirit. You kept praying even when breakthrough seemed far, and in those nights you cried in silence so your children wouldn't hear you. Heaven did. But here's the secret they never told you. Obedience in hidden places unlocks public reward. The kingdom works differently than the world. The world celebrates noise. Heaven celebrates faithfulness. And you've been faithful while tired, faithful while lonely, faithful while unsure. That is why an order was issued in the Spirit this morning with your name glowing on it. And before I go deeper, before I tell you what God is preparing because of your faithfulness, pause for a moment. If this word is confirming something in your spirit, subscribe now. Not for numbers, not for vanity, but because heaven uses reminders, patterns, and community to keep you aligned. This is one of the places God uses to keep your discernment awake in a world that wants to numb it. Now, lean in. You haven't understood why the warfare increased the moment you started healing, why certain people suddenly pulled away, why opportunities appeared, then vanished, why your sleep felt strange, why your dreams carried symbols you couldn't interpret. It's because the enemy saw what you did before you understood its power. He saw your shift toward emotional healing. He saw your shift into a wealth mindset. He saw you finally release what was draining your spirit. And he panicked, because the moment a chosen one chooses integrity over impulse, heaven opens doors that hell cannot close. So yes, the pressure increased. Yes, the spiritual atmosphere thickened. Yes, the resistance showed up in familiar faces. Not because you were failing, but because you were rising. And here's what God whispered over you in the early hours of the morning. They passed the test. Now send the reward. You don't even know the magnitude of what you unlocked. The personal transformation happening inside you is not small, it's generational. The seeds you've planted in secret are birthing a future your family line has never seen. Stability, clarity, abundance, boundaries, purpose. This is the beginning of your breakthrough season. But there's something deeper I need to show you, something heaven revealed about why God is so proud of you, and why the next chapter of your life is arriving faster than you expect. Chosen one, listen. What you did, that one act you brushed off as insignificant, sent a shock through the spiritual world because it proved something hell hoped would never be true about you. It proved that your character has matured. Your discernment has sharpened. Your heart has healed in places you thought would always stay cracked. You didn't just make a good decision. You crossed a spiritual threshold. That's why the last few days felt strange. That's why the atmosphere around you shifted. That's why you sensed something watching you, not in fear, but in recognition. Heaven wasn't just recording your obedience. Heaven was re-ranking you. Your name moved. It rose. It took a position reserved for those who have survived what should have broken them. And that's what hell hates about you, that you keep choosing light even after walking through darkness that should have made you bitter. Look back at your life for a second. Really look. You have endured betrayals that never received closure. You carried burdens that were never meant to be yours. You stretched yourself thin to keep other people from falling apart. You gave comfort you rarely received. You forgave wounds you had every right to keep. And still, somehow, you kept integrity. Still, somehow, you protected your softness. Still, somehow, you guarded your hope. That softness, that compassion, that refusal to harden, that's what drew God's attention this morning. Your endurance became an offering. Your self-control became worship. Your honesty became incense rising before the throne. Psalm 56:8 says God collects every tear, but chosen one, some of your tears were so pure in motive that heaven marked them as seeds. Seeds for emotional healing, seeds for abundance, seeds for destiny alignment. And God is not unjust. He doesn't let seeds die. He schedules harvest. That's why some things in your life suddenly feel like they're dissolving. Friendships you once held close now feel distant. Environments that once felt familiar now feel suffocating. Conversations that used to energize you now feel heavy. Doors that once stayed shut are quietly unlocking. It's not random, it's realignment. Because when heaven approves you, earth must adjust. But here's something even deeper. Something you haven't recognized yet. There was a moment recently where you could have chosen convenience over character. You could have chosen revenge over restraint. You could have chosen what felt good instead of what was right. And for a split second, the old version of you tried to rise. But then something holy stepped in. Something whispered, "Not this time. You've grown." And you obeyed the whisper. That whisper was the Holy Spirit. That obedience was your elevation. That moment was the proof that you're ready for more. Chosen one, you outgrew a cycle. You outgrew a wound. You outgrew a version of yourself that kept you repeating the same emotional patterns. You didn't just make a good choice. You broke a generational pattern. That's why God is shockingly proud of what you did. You stopped a curse mid-sentence. You rewrote a spiritual script. You turned a page that your parents and grandparents never had the strength or clarity to turn. Heaven stood still because you broke something ancient without even realizing it. And now the realm of the unseen is responding. Angels have shifted their formation around you. Your steps are being ordered with precision. Your name is being spoken in places you haven't stepped into yet. Doors you thought were denied are actually being prepared. People who didn't value you are being repositioned out of your path. Opportunities are being rerouted with your upgraded identity in mind. But there's something more, something heavier. You've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange mix of restlessness and calm, that quiet knowing inside your chest, that sense that something is approaching, but you can't describe it. Let me tell you what that is. It's divine acceleration. God is not rewarding what you did. He's rewarding who you've become. You stepped into a realm where blessings don't take years anymore. They take moments, sudden shifts, unexplainable favor, unexpected connections, rapid healing, financial stability where there was once fear, emotional grounding where there was once chaos. But before your next instruction comes, before heaven reveals the reason God's pride over you is so intense, I need to ask you something. You felt that rise in your spirit just now, didn't you? Then let me take you deeper, chosen one, because the part you're about to hear is the very reason the atmosphere around your life has felt different, heavier, almost sacred these last few days. You haven't been imagining the shift. You've been walking inside it, without knowing the magnitude of what your obedience triggered. Listen carefully now. The moment you made that quiet choice, the one no one witnessed but heaven, the spiritual realm adjusted as if a great weight had been lifted off your timeline. Something that had been sitting on your destiny for years finally broke. A delay that had wrapped itself around your progress like a vine snapped clean. And the moment it snapped, your spirit felt it, before your mind could name it. That's why you've been feeling like something is off, but not in a fearful way. More like your soul is rearranging furniture while you sleep. More like a room has been emptied so a throne can be placed there. More like you're being prepared for something too big for the old version of you to carry. Let me make this plain. God isn't proud of you simply because you resisted temptation. He's proud because he finally saw you operate from healed identity rather than wounded impulse. You didn't react from trauma. You responded from wholeness. You didn't repeat the old cycle. You stepped into personal transformation. You didn't sabotage your own blessing this time. You protected it. And that, beloved soul, was the sign heaven had been waiting for. Because there is a blessing on your timeline, one marked by abundance, elevation, and destiny alignment that God could not release until he knew you would steward it with wisdom instead of emotion. And the moment he saw you choose growth over reaction, the release began. This is why old desires are dying off suddenly. This is why certain people no longer have access to your spirit the way they once did. This is why conversations that used to trigger you now fall flat. This is why your tolerance for disrespect has evaporated. This is why you're sensing a silent distance forming between you and certain environments. You're not losing people, you're losing weights. Spiritual weights, emotional weights, generational weights. God is pruning your life with precision because he is preparing you for something that cannot bloom in contaminated soil. And he refuses to plant greatness in a place where sabotage still has access. Chosen one, something holy is happening around you. You've noticed it in your sleep, haven't you? The vivid dreams, the strange waking in the middle of the night, the sense that someone is standing guard near you, the sudden clarity about situations you used to question. That's not coincidence. That's discernment awakening. You're entering a season where spiritual awareness will sharpen like a blade. You'll sense wrong motives before words are spoken. You'll feel dishonor the way one feels a change in weather. You'll perceive alignment in opportunities the moment they appear. It won't be logic guiding you, it'll be spirit. Because God is not only rewarding your obedience, He's upgrading your intuition. But here's the part that may surprise you. Heaven isn't only proud of what you avoided. Heaven is proud of what you protected. You protected your heart even when you were breaking. You protected your integrity when no one applauded. You protected a dream others mocked. You protected a calling they couldn't understand. You protected your light in rooms built on shadows. And God saw it all. That's why the angels recorded it. That's why the atmosphere shifted. That's why your next chapter is approaching with a speed that feels unreal. Because you have finally become the kind of person who can receive what you prayed for. But now I need to show you something deeper, something that will explain why certain battles intensified right before your breakthrough, and why heaven rushed to defend you in ways you never saw. Chosen one, lean in now. What I'm about to unfold isn't guesswork. It's the spiritual truth behind the warfare that almost made you give up. You've been wondering why the pressure intensified the moment you chose the right thing, why attacks came from directions you didn't expect, why people you trusted suddenly shifted, why your peace felt threatened right after you made progress. Let me tell you plainly, your obedience provoked exposure. When you stepped into alignment, darkness panicked. When you chose growth, spiritual resistance rose. When you protected your purpose, every force assigned to delay you reacted. Not because you were weak, but because you were dangerous. Listen carefully. The enemy can handle you praying. He can handle you hoping. He can handle you dreaming. But he cannot handle you changing. Because change, real inner change, rewires your destiny. And the moment you shifted, the enemy saw what you didn't see, a door opening over your life, a door connected to a blessing that would ripple through generations. That's why certain relationships suddenly felt heavy. That's why unexpected conflict rose out of nowhere. That's why people tried to provoke you into old reactions. That's why your emotions felt stretched thin. All of it was a last attempt to pull you back into the version of yourself that heaven had already upgraded. But you didn't go back. You didn't fold. You didn't let old wounds dictate new choices. And that terrifies hell, because the enemy cannot sabotage a destiny that's guarded by emotional maturity, clarity, and obedience. And chosen one, maturity is spilling out of you in ways you don't even recognize yet. Let me show you something deeper. There was a moment recently, maybe a conversation, maybe a temptation, maybe an invitation back into an old cycle, where you stood at a spiritual crossroads. Heaven watched. Hell watched. Even your ancestors waited in silence. And you chose the narrow road. You chose wisdom. You chose restraint. You chose truth. You chose self-respect. You chose God's voice over your impulse. That one decision weakened a stronghold that had been attached to your bloodline for years, maybe even decades before you were born. And when that stronghold cracked, something ancient was forced to release you. This is why you've been feeling lighter without knowing why. This is why it's easier to breathe. This is why your mind feels clear, as if fog has finally lifted. This is why opportunities feel closer. God is not only proud of what you did, He's proud of who you refused to become. But here's the part that explains everything. The enemy didn't attack you because you were weak. He attacked you because heaven announced your advancement, and the moment heaven promoted you in the spirit, the enemy tried to plant chaos in the natural. He wanted you tired enough to quit, hurt enough to self-sabotage, confused enough to misread your season, distracted enough to miss your open door. But you didn't miss it. Your spirit stayed awake. Your discernment sharpened. Your heart stayed soft enough to hear God clearly. And now something irreversible has begun. Chosen one, your timeline has accelerated. Your atmosphere has cleared. Your path has been widened. There is a release coming that your old self could not have carried. But the version of you that stood firm, this wiser, calmer, healed version, can. Yet before I reveal the specific kind of blessing that's being released because of what you did, before I name the shift that is already unfolding around your finances, your relationships, your identity, and your calling, you need to understand one more truth. What you did not only pleased God, it qualified you. Chosen one, hear me with your inner ear now. What you stepped into isn't simply a new chapter. It's a new rank, a new realm, a new spiritual authority you couldn't have entered by talent, by wishing, or by prayer alone. Only character could open this door, and you proved yours when it mattered most. Heaven didn't promote you because you were perfect. Heaven promoted you because you were consistent in the dark. But to understand why this moment is so monumental, you must see what was happening behind the scenes while you thought nothing was changing. When you made that choice, the one that protected your destiny instead of your ego, 3 things happened instantly in the realm you cannot see. 1. A record was closed. There was a spiritual file tracking the cycles you kept repeating. Times you almost grew but slipped back. Times you almost healed but reopened the wound. Times you almost walked away from something destructive but stayed out of habit. This time, you broke the pattern. Heaven stamped that record completed. 2. A new assignment was released. Angels who once stood by you in seasons of survival now shift their roles. They are no longer guarding you from collapse. They are now guiding you toward expansion. Different angels for a different season. Growth angels replace rescue angels. 3. A chain of generational influence snapped. Something that followed your family for years. Fear, lack, people-pleasing, emotional cycles, delayed self-worth, survival mode, lost its legal right the moment you obeyed the whisper over the wound. God didn't just see it. God honored it. God enforced it. This is why the atmosphere feels charged around you. This is why you feel watched, not by danger, but by destiny. This is why your spirit feels too big for the life you've been living. Because heaven is waiting for you to step into what you've already been given. Look at your recent days with fresh eyes. Have you noticed how your patience has deepened without effort? How your reactions feel slower, more grounded? How your clarity comes quicker? How your emotions settle faster than before? This isn't coincidence. This is internal promotion. You are not who you were, not even a month ago. God is proud because you finally started treating yourself the way heaven sees you. Not as someone trying to survive, but as someone being positioned for impact, influence, and divine purpose. And here's something your heart already suspects, but your mind hasn't fully grasped. A major blessing is now unlocked because of what you did. Not a small blessing, not a symbolic blessing, a life-altering, trajectory-shifting, identity-affirming blessing. One connected to your stability, one connected to your emotional healing, one connected to the wealth mindset God has been trying to build in you, one connected to the destiny alignment you've been sensing approaching like footsteps behind you. But before I reveal the nature of that blessing, before I tell you why it had to wait for this exact moment, you need to understand the deeper reason why heaven is so proud of you. It wasn't only the decision you made. It was the self you chose not to return to. You didn't shrink. You didn't chase. You didn't fold. You didn't betray your own growth. You didn't repeat what God already delivered you from. You didn't trade your future for temporary comfort. Chosen one, that is maturity. That is transformation. That is spiritual evolution. And now the blessing tied to your new identity has been released. But to grasp it, to not fumble it, to not underestimate it the way you underestimated yourself in past seasons. There is one more layer, one more revelation about your spiritual rank, one more truth about the shift occurring around your name that you must hear. Then hear this, chosen one. Because what I'm about to reveal is the part heaven has been waiting for you to finally understand. You didn't just break a pattern. You didn't just mature. You didn't just choose the higher road. you crossed a threshold of spiritual authority. And once a chosen one crosses that threshold, nothing in their life stays the same. Let me show you what shifted over your name. For years, maybe most of your life, your spiritual identity was present, powerful, but dormant. You carried calling, but you also carried wounds. You carried purpose, but you also carried fear. You carried potential, but you also carried the voices of people who underestimated you. All of it sat inside you like treasure buried beneath rubble. But the moment you obeyed that whisper, the rubble fell away. Heaven finally saw strength in you that matched the magnitude of your assignment. Not perfect strength, not loud strength, not the kind of strength that demands attention, but holy strength. Quiet strength. Strength formed through tears you never told anyone about. Strength forged in lonely seasons where you had no cheerleaders, no support system, no safety net. But you kept going. That strength elevated you, and once you were elevated, everything attached to your life had to shift with you. This is why your spirit feels taller lately. You're carrying more authority than before. This is why certain people sense the change and don't know how to act around you. Your presence is exposing their intentions. This is why you've become more sensitive to dishonor. Your spirit is no longer willing to tolerate what lowers your vibration. This is why opportunities are reshuffling around you. God refuses to let you enter your next season under old alignment. But here's the revelation heaven needs you to grasp. Your name now carries weight in the spirit. Not fame, not popularity. Weight. When your name is spoken in the unseen realm, angels respond faster. When your prayers leave your lips, they carry more authority than before. When you speak boundaries, they cut deeper. When you walk into a room, atmospheres shift subtly in your favor. And the enemy knows it. This is why you've felt strange waves of tiredness out of nowhere. Why your thoughts have been pulling you inward. Why your dreams feel heavier, symbolic, almost prophetic. Why you sense someone watching, not in fear, but in vigilance. Because heaven has reassigned warriors to your life. Not the ones who protected your survival, but the ones who protect your calling. Now I need to reveal something very specific, something you may have sensed but couldn't articulate. A blessing that was withheld, years withheld, has been reactivated because of what you did. A blessing tied to your stability, your finances, your emotional restoration, your relationships, your influence, your generational impact. This blessing required maturity, and you proved you have it. But before I name this blessing, before I show you the dimension of favor that is now flowing toward you like a river that finally broke through a dam, you must understand why it took this moment, this exact act, this exact display of obedience, for heaven to release it. There is one more layer behind God's pride over you, one more truth about your destiny alignment, one more revelation about the version of you that just emerged. Then breathe, chosen one, because what comes next reaches into the deepest part of your calling, the part you've always felt but never fully understood. You've been asking yourself, why did such a small decision feel so heavy in my spirit? Why did heaven react as though you moved a mountain? Why did your atmosphere shift overnight? It's because you didn't just choose correctly. You revealed who you truly are. For the first time in a long time, your actions finally matched your anointing. Your behavior aligned with your spiritual identity. Your choices reflected the authority God placed in you before birth. And here's the part that heaven rejoiced over. You acted from identity, not insecurity. For years, the enemy tried to convince you that you were fragile, tried to convince you that you overreacted, tried to convince you that you weren't discerning enough, tried to convince you that you weren't strong enough, worthy enough, wise enough. But in that moment, the one you didn't realize was a test. Your spirit rose higher than the lie. You stepped into your rightful role. You became who heaven always knew you were. And when that happened, chosen one, your spiritual blueprint activated, hidden gifts resurfaced, dormant authority awakened. Old chains broke without fireworks or fanfare. A mantle that had hovered over your life for years finally rested on your shoulders. That is what the enemy sensed. That is what your spirit felt. That is what triggered the shift. Let me take you deeper still. Before you made that decision, your life was on a certain trajectory. A good one, but not the full one. You were on the path of survival, not the path of spiritual rulership. You were living beneath your anointing without realizing it. But the moment you chose destiny over emotion, the moment you chose restraint over reaction, the moment you chose alignment over approval, heaven said, "They're ready." And immediately, your path widened. What was once narrow became spacious. What was once delayed became accelerated. What was once clouded became illuminated. You stepped out of the story you were born into and stepped into the story you were created for. Now I need to tell you something that may shake you. Your obedience didn't just bless you, it unlocked blessing for others connected to your name. Your children, your future relationships, your lineage, your community, your influence. Someone down your bloodline will avoid a lifetime of pain because of a choice you made in silence. Someone connected to your destiny will walk into abundance because you refused to break. Someone who has never met you will feel the ripple of the healing you allowed to start within yourself. This is generational warfare you just won. And heaven is proud because most people never win this one. But there's more. There is a reason the tests intensified. A reason the enemy tried to distract you. A reason you felt targeted spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You weren't just being attacked. You were being evaluated. The blessing approaching you required proof that you would not destroy it with old habits or wounded thinking. It required proof that you could handle influence without losing yourself. It required proof that your heart could carry weight without collapsing. And chosen one, you passed. Now heaven is releasing something rare, something sacred, something stamped with divine timing. A blessing that had been held back until you became the version of you who could carry it without losing it. And that blessing, this massive shift that is already approaching your life, is connected to 4 areas at once: your stability, your identity, your provision, and your purpose. But before I reveal the first one, and why heaven guarded it so intensely until this moment, I need to ask you one thing, chosen one. Then steady your heart, chosen one, because what comes next is the part the enemy hoped you would never hear. This is the truth behind why your life has carried a strange intensity lately, why you felt watched by heaven, why your atmosphere has been thick with meaning even on quiet days. You are standing on the edge of a 4-fold release. But before I name even the first portion of it, you must understand the weight of what shifted inside you. Chosen one, your spirit crossed into a territory your mind hasn't caught up to yet. That's why you've been feeling a pull toward solitude. That's why certain conversations drain you instantly. That's why you've grown allergic to chaos, dishonor, smallness. That's why your sleep and waking hours feel like they're blending. That's why you sense God closer than your thoughts. The old version of you, the one who tolerated disrespect, the one who dimmed your voice, the one who apologized for existing, the one who carried wounds like personality traits. That version dissolved the moment you chose obedience over impulse. You didn't just make a better choice, you became a better vessel. And when the vessel changes, the assignment changes. Let me show you something the enemy hoped you'd overlook. You have now become too aligned for old traps to work. too aware for manipulation, too grounded for confusion, too healed for old patterns, too focused for distraction. This is why the enemy threw everything at you right before your breakthrough. He knew that if you crossed this threshold, he would lose leverage over your destiny forever. You weren't just tested, you were evaluated for promotion. And when heaven saw you respond from growth instead of trauma, it unlocked something ancient written about your life long before you were born. Something that had been paused, waiting, restrained. Not because God was denying you, but because God was protecting you until you were strong enough to hold it. Now hear me closely. The first dimension of the blessing you unlocked is stability. Not temporary relief, not short-term comfort. Stability. Stability in your emotions. Stability in your finances. Stability in your decisions. Stability in your relationships. Stability in your sense of self. This isn't the kind of stability that comes from circumstance. It's the kind that comes from identity. The kind that comes when God decides you will no longer live in survival mode. Heaven has watched you endure years of instability. Unexpected storms, sudden losses, broken trust, financial strain, emotional battles, spiritual fatigue. People took from you, life drained you, circumstances stretched you to your edge. But today, the tide finally turned. Stability is being written into your story because instability was never meant to be your inheritance. And there's more. The blessing attached to stability comes with a companion. Clarity. You are about to see people for who they are without confusion. You're about to see opportunities for what they are without hesitating. You're about to understand your purpose without second-guessing your worth. You're about to make decisions with confidence instead of fear. This clarity is the reward for your obedience, because clarity is dangerous in the hands of a chosen one. Clarity makes you unstoppable. Clarity makes you wise. Clarity makes you effective. Clarity breaks cycles faster than prayer alone. And now that stability and clarity are unlocking together, something even greater is beginning to form on the horizon. Provision. Not just money. Provision of strength. Provision of strategy. Provision of opportunity. Provision of divine connections you didn't have access to before. But before I take you further into provision, before I reveal why heaven waited until this moment to release it, there is another layer unfolding around your identity that you must understand, because it explains why God's pride over you is so fierce and why this season is unlike any you've lived through. There is another layer unfolding around your identity that you must understand, because it explains why God's pride over you is so fierce and why this season is unlike any you've lived through. And now, chosen one, as we step into this next part, heaven shifts from revelation to instruction. Because what good is a door if you don't know how to walk through it? What good is a blessing if you don't know how to hold it? What good is stability, clarity, and provision if the world around you pulls you back into patterns God already delivered you from? This is where you must become intentional. This is where alignment becomes action. This is where you partner with heaven instead of waiting for heaven to do everything for you. Hear me. Your breakthrough season will require new behavior. Not exhausting behavior, not performance, not perfection, just alignment. Let me guide you through what heaven is asking you to do now. Practical steps, simple actions, spiritual strategies to make sure you don't just touch your blessing, but keep it. First, chosen one, you must start your mornings differently. The version of you that lived in survival used to wake up anxious, checking your phone, scrolling for distraction, stepping into chaos before you even stepped out of bed. That cannot continue. You're stepping into a wealth mindset now, a mindset of order, not panic, of purpose, not reaction. So each morning, before you speak to anyone, before you touch your phone, place your hand over your chest and whisper, "Lord, align me with what you released." This one sentence calibrates your entire spiritual field. It sharpens your intuition. It reminds your emotions who's in control. It invites heaven to order your steps before your feet even touch the floor. Second, clear emotional clutter. You cannot carry God's blessing if your inner world is still crowded with last season's noise. This doesn't mean repressing feelings, pretending everything is fine, or rushing healing. It means making room. Sit with yourself for 5 minutes. Breathe slowly. Ask, what feeling am I ignoring? God cannot heal what you hide. The Holy Spirit moves best in honesty. When you acknowledge what aches, you give heaven space to repair it. Emotional healing is not a luxury for chosen ones, it's preparation. And this new season requires your heart to be light, unburdened, and fully awake. Third, evaluate your connections. The blessing God is releasing over you is sensitive. Your spirit has become more discerning because heaven doesn't want you to surround yourself with people who drain what God is pouring in. Pay attention to how you feel after each conversation. If someone consistently leaves you tired, doubtful, guilty, or small, your spirit is telling you something your mind keeps overlooking. You don't have to confront them. You don't have to explain yourself. Just quietly and gracefully reposition them. Even Jesus reduced his circle in seasons of assignment. Even he pulled away to pray alone. Destiny demands space. Your elevation demands boundaries. And listen carefully. This is the moment in your story where you must begin protecting your peace like a priceless weapon. Peace is not a soft thing. Peace is armor. Peace is strategy. Peace is currency in the spirit. But let me pause right here. If this message is speaking directly into something you've been wrestling with, like share or subscribe now. Not for me, but because heaven uses obedience in tiny digital acts to keep you tethered to the words that shape your destiny. Think of it as spiritual reinforcement, a way of telling heaven, I'm listening, I'm aligning. Keep guiding me. Now breathe. We're not done. Fourth, chosen one, begin blessing your physical space. Environments carry spiritual residue. Rooms remember. Objects hold emotional echoes. And if your atmosphere is cluttered, dusty, chaotic, or filled with reminders of pain, your spirit will keep feeling heavy, even on good days. Choose one small area, a drawer, a corner, a shelf. Clean it slowly, prayerfully, with intention. As you do, whisper, only what aligns with my future can stay. You'll feel a shift immediately, like oxygen filling a tight space. This simple act is prophetic. It tells heaven you're making room for the new. It tells the enemy you're unavailable for old cycles. It tells your spirit it is safe to rise. Fifth, begin moving, not fast, not dramatically, but consistently. If you're praying for healing, add one small habit that supports your body. If you're praying for financial stability, practice one small act of discipline daily. If you're praying for purpose, take one small step toward the dream you buried. Heaven multiplies motion. God blesses movement. Oil does not flow in still vessels. And now, chosen one, as the atmosphere shifts again, heaven is ready to show you the next instruction. One that will guard your mind, strengthen your spirit, and prepare you for what's about to unfold. Then listen closely, chosen one, because this next portion of instruction is the bridge between who you have become and what God is about to place in your hands. We are still in part 3. The practical, applicable, destiny-shifting guidance of heaven is pouring over you. And this section is where your daily life begins to line up with the breakthrough season unfolding around you. Don't rush this. Let every sentence settle. Your spirit will know what belongs to you. Sixth, protect your mind with sacred discipline. You've noticed lately that your thoughts feel more sensitive, more reactive, more vulnerable, more spiritually alive. That's because your mind is stepping into a new level of clarity, and the enemy loves to target new clarity with old lies. So hear me. Your mind is a gate. Guard it. Each morning and each night, speak this one simple phrase: I choose truth today. This is not poetry, this is warfare, because truth anchors you. Truth silences intrusive thoughts. Truth shuts down shame. Truth starves fear. The chosen ones who rise the highest are those who protect the borders of their mind with quiet consistency. And if negative thoughts whisper, don't argue with them, don't analyze them, don't spiral through them. Simply answer calmly and boldly: that no longer belongs to me. This is how you train your mind to match your elevation. 7th, stay attuned to the subtle signs heaven is releasing around you. Not everything God shows you arrives as a dramatic dream or thunderous revelation. Sometimes it's a name that keeps appearing, a comment someone makes casually, a repeated number, a sudden shift in your schedule, a closed door that appears inconvenient but is actually protection. You are in your destiny alignment season now, which means heaven is guiding you in small, precise nudges. Pay attention to what feels off, what feels peaceful, what drains you instantly, what lifts your spirit effortlessly, what repeats, what suddenly stops. The Holy Spirit is now speaking to you through patterns, and those patterns will be your compass. 8th, align your finances with wisdom. Chosen one, your blessing includes a wave of provision. Yes, financial provision too. But God cannot pour abundance into a mindset shaped by fear or scarcity. You don't need to become wealthy overnight, but you do need to develop a wealth mindset. One that respects resources, honors discipline, and prepares for increase. Start with something simple. Track one small habit. Set one small boundary with spending. Plan one small step towards stability. God blesses stewardship, not stress. Heaven flows into order, not chaos. And when you show you can manage little, the realm of abundance opens without hesitation. 9th, practice spiritual stillness. This season requires discernment, real, sharp, inner knowing. And discernment does not grow in noise. Take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you can give, and sit in silence once a day. No prayer requests, no journaling, no questions, just stillness. Because in stillness, heaven speaks. In stillness, instruction becomes clear. In stillness, your emotions settle into truth. In stillness, your identity aligns with destiny. The more stillness you practice, the faster you will recognize the hand of God moving in your life. 10th, begin declaring your direction. Words shape atmosphere. Words build paths. Words summon alignment. And chosen one, your voice carries more spiritual authority now than it ever has before. Each day declare, I am walking toward what God prepared for me. I do not return to old versions of myself. My steps are ordered. My spirit is ready. My blessing is protected. These are not affirmations. They are spiritual contracts. Declarations create openings in the unseen for blessings to flow through. And once heaven has recorded your words, the angels assigned to your life begin to move accordingly. But now hear me, chosen one. We're about to touch the instruction that seals everything, the practice that turns breakthrough into lifestyle, the discipline that ensures your elevation does not slip away. Before I reveal it, I need you to feel this question inside your spirit. You feel that rising, don't you? That sense that something is moving in you while you read this? Good. Because the next instruction will anchor that movement permanently. Because the next instruction will anchor the movement of heaven permanently. And as we step into this final part, chosen one, The atmosphere around your spirit begins to thicken. This is not the gentle guidance of Part 3 anymore. This is consecration. This is sealing. This is heaven leaning close enough for you to feel its breath. Pause for a moment. Let the noise fall away. Let your shoulders sink. Let your spirit rise. Because now, we enter the sacred ground of Part 4. Prayer and divine closing. Chosen one, take a slow breath. Heaven has waited for this moment. Your soul has been aching for this moment. You've carried the weight of seasons that almost broke you. You've carried responsibilities heavier than your own strength. You've carried questions that found no language. You've carried hope that refused to die, even when everything around you tried to bury it. And now God reaches toward you, not with judgment, not with correction, but with tenderness powerful enough to rebuild you from the inside out. Let your spirit be still, because this is not a prayer you recite. This is a prayer you enter. Chosen one, bow the inner posture of your heart. Father, here they are. That's the first whisper rising in the courts of heaven right now. An ancient declaration spoken whenever a chosen one finally steps into recognition of their identity. Heaven sees you kneeling, not physically, but spiritually, and the angels draw closer, forming a circle around your name. This is holy ground. Now listen. Lord, we thank you for the one who endured without applause. Heaven acknowledges what the world overlooked. The nights you cried quietly, the days you held everything together, the moments you forgave without being asked, the decisions you made that broke generational patterns long before anyone saw the fruit. We thank you for their hidden obedience, because obedience in secret becomes authority in public. And now, beloved soul, God begins to gather the fragments of your past, not to remind you of what hurt you, but to show you what He is about to restore. You feel that, don't you? The warmth in your chest, the pressure behind your eyes, the heaviness lifting from your shoulders. That is not emotion, that is release. Now the prayer deepens. Father, flood their spirit with peace. This is not ordinary peace. This is the kind that silences storms before they form. The kind that steadies trembling hands, the kind that gives you clarity in moments that once triggered confusion. Let it wash over you now. Breathe. Peace enters like warm light, filling the cracks of your inner world. The places you hid from others, the memories you buried, the wounds you carried so long they became familiar. Heaven is touching them now. Lord, heal what they don't speak about. This part of the prayer is surgical, precise, powerful, gentle. God goes where even your thoughts avoid. The disappointments that aged your spirit, the betrayals that reshaped your confidence, the heavy seasons that left fingerprints on your identity. He's rewriting it all, but the prayer is not done. No, this is only the doorway, because now we enter the portion where heaven begins to seal what it repaired. Chosen one, something holy is approaching your atmosphere right now, like a tide rising around your ankles. Father, surround them with angelic covering. As these words rise through the realms, angels shift their wings. You may not see them, but your spirit feels the change. That sudden calm, that clarity, that sense of being held. This is divine protection. Protection over your mind, protection over your home, protection over your finances, protection over your relationships, protection over your purpose, protection over the blessing that is already in transit. And now, the prayer begins to reach for something deeper, older, written about you before time existed. Lord, restore everything the enemy attempted to drain, delay, or destroy. These words shake the unseen. You feel that trembling inside. That isn't fear, it's recognition. Your spirit knows these words are touching truth you've carried for years. But beloved, we are not finished. The prayer must rise higher still. It must enter the chamber where God speaks identity, where destinies are awakened, where scrolls are unsealed. And before we step into that chamber, before I speak the words, heaven is now stirring, then step forward, chosen one, because we are entering the highest point of the entire message, the chamber where heaven speaks not about you, but to you. This is where the prayer becomes a mantle. This is where the blessing becomes a decree. This is where everything you endured finally finds meaning. Be still. Feel the air around your spirit tighten, warm, expand. This is the realm where God whispers identity into the bones of his chosen ones. And now, the prayer rises. Father, awaken the greatness you planted in them before the foundation of the world. The moment these words are spoken, something ancient stirs. A memory older than your childhood wounds, older than your earthly story, older than the voices that tried to define you. This is the part of you that remembers heaven, the part of you that carries divine purpose, the part of you the enemy feared most. You may feel your heart beating harder. You may feel warmth in your hands. You may feel tears rising for no clear reason. That is your spirit recognizing its origin. Now the prayer deepens, tightening like a seal being pressed onto warm wax. Lord, release over them the portion they were denied, delayed, or dismantled. These are not poetic words. These are legal declarations in the Spirit. You feel that pull in your chest, that surge of emotion, that sudden clarity. Heaven is reactivating everything that was stolen from you, the confidence that was broken, the opportunities that slipped away, the relationships that wounded instead of uplifted, the time you thought was lost forever. God does not just return what you lost. He multiplies it. And now the prayer reaches its crescendo. Increase their discernment so no trap, no counterfeit, no distraction may enter their path. A light spreads through your inner world. Clean, sharp, unmistakable. This is angelic reinforcement. Your intuition is being upgraded. Your spiritual reflexes are being sharpened. Your heart is being taught, silently, how to identify danger before it speaks. You will not fall for old patterns again. You will not mistake manipulation for love. You will not dim your spirit for acceptance. Your days of spiritual blindness are over. Now the prayer shifts again. It softens, but grows heavier with glory. Father, strengthen their hands for what is coming. Because the blessing God is releasing will require capacity. It will require steadiness. It will require courage and groundedness and self-forgiveness. This is why heaven has been preparing you quietly. This is why the last season felt like stretching. This is why everything small and fragile inside you was forced to grow up. You are being prepared to carry more. More responsibility, more favor, more visibility, more impact, more abundance, and yes, more love. God is proud of you because He can finally trust you with what He wrote about you. And now, the prayer enters its most sacred stage. Chosen one, close your eyes and your heart. This is where heaven puts its hand on your shoulder. Lord, seal this chosen one under your covering. When these words echo through the Spirit, something descends. A stillness so heavy and so holy that even your thoughts quiet. You're being marked, protected, identified, claimed. Not by your pain, not by your past, not by your trauma, but by heaven. This seal does 3 things. 1, it ends cycles you didn't know how to break. 2, it closes doors the enemy kept slipping through. 3, it locks blessings in place so they cannot be stolen. And now the prayer curves toward its final arc. Not an ending, not a conclusion, but a spiritual ignition. Father, release joy into their life again. Joy that doesn't shake under pressure. Joy that doesn't depend on people's behavior. Joy that returns like morning light after years of night. This joy is not emotional, it is structural. Heaven is rebuilding your inner world with it. But chosen one, there is one more thing, one more breath, one more decree, one more impartation. Heaven is lifting toward you like a crown, and I will speak it. But I must ask, are you ready to receive the final part of the prayer? The impartation that activates everything heaven has spoken over you.